Hi, my name is Jess. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a white, cis queer, able-bodied settler coming to you from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations of the Coast Salish people. I at first came towards the health sector of wanting to get to know more about holistic nutrition, but I was far more interested in people's minds and the communities that surrounded them. I see all of these factors really playing into someone's health and well-being, as well as the health and well-being of their relationships. But I've definitely just been more captured over time by people's stories and all of the different experiences that I get to hear and be a part of when in counseling. So I think that it was a very natural trajectory moving into this space. And I really appreciate how counseling also brings in elements of art and movement and really goes beyond what we do in counseling to extend to our relationships and how we show up in community. I think that counseling always has surprising elements because you're working with people and people are always changing and shifting and evolving. And it's something that's really exciting about counseling, that there's so many different ways people access healing, whether it be within counseling or beyond counseling. And one of the things that really comes up around a surprise for me is that a lot of people like you yourself might come into counseling experiencing an emotion like grief, joy, or transition. And the way that you heal and find support in that might be different from the next person that I talk to and is experiencing the same emotion. So even though we're unified on that front of emotional experiences, we might really need different resources or different perspectives to be able to make sense and grow from that. I think counseling works for a number of different reasons, and a few of those might be that it's a relationship, and in that sense, we're able to really heal when we're with others and able to share ourselves authentically. I think also that counseling provides you a space to connect the dots, and we don't always get those in such a fast-paced world where we're constantly thinking about the next thing. Counseling really allows us to slow down and look at what's been bothering us and what maybe you are wanting to change in your life or your relationships so that you can make those changes in a more conscious way. I think the last thing that I would say about how counseling works is that counseling shows change in a way that starts maybe in the session and then ripples out into the way that you show up in your relationships or how you interact with the systems around you. It definitely increases your awareness of those things and gives you a space to come back to be accountable and in community. So, my approach to counseling looks at the person, their relationships, and then broader context. I like to start here to really get like an understanding of what someone is going through, what they have access to, and just what their life looks like with others. I think I also try to bring in metaphors or other visuals that can really help you to shift your perspective or get a new viewpoint on something that you've been struggling with. I think that counseling is a really great space to not only find some structure with another person, but also a lot of like flexibility and flow to be able to just go with what comes up. So I think that my approach can depend person to person, but I'll kind of come back to those key factors to check in with you and really get a sense of what might be helpful. I think, as I've mentioned, I look at things from many different angles, and multidisciplinary practice is something that I see through counseling and beyond counseling when it comes to our healing, is something that is affected by our mind, our body, our community, and if we have further beliefs, perhaps our spirit. And I think that all of these elements are really crucial to name as well as notice also the barriers that we have encountered to access those different resources that might help us towards healing. So I think in that sense, multidisciplinary practice in counseling will be me looking at what are those things in your life that really bring you wellness and joy and felt community. And how can we bring in more of that? Or what are the barriers to you accessing that? I think that looking at things from a more holistic lens through the real context that you're experiencing is something that I strive for in my sessions. So for me, anti-oppressive practice is one that's ongoing and supported by action. I do bring this into the counseling session at the beginning, learning about your identities that you hold close, the communities you're a part of, and the ways that you've been impacted by systems in the past. I understand that I also bring in different experiences, biases, and my own experiences with those systems. So I want to be able to have a space where you can come and ask questions. And I see that as really crucial to not replicating the harmful ways systems have impacted us in the past. And counseling is connected to those systems. So being able to have those honest discussions about what's going on in the world can be really key to upholding those values and creating a community that we feel more supported by. I think anti-oppressive practice as a queer individual also looks at breaking from the binary. I've seen so much beauty in the in-between or breaking from labels, but I also understand how our system is really oriented to categorizing us and that being the way that we access resources and connection. So I want to hold space for both in session, and I hope that you're able to bring in those experiences so that we can look at them a little bit deeper and see which identities you hold close and what other labels or boxes might close you in more and keep you from being able to be your most genuine self. So, what should you expect working with me? When you are working with me, I expect that you bring in all of your mess. And I say mess with a very caring and loving perspective. I don't think mess is a bad thing. I think that we have been told that. And I see the human experience as something that brings in a lot of different emotions and confusion and transition and change are all key pieces to that. So to be able to have a space in counseling where you can really look at all of those elements, see what connects, see what's helpful for you right now and what is no longer serving you is what I really want you to be able to feel in the space. And yeah, I also see counseling as a way to connect with what would be helpful beyond the sessions, because our time together might bring about what you want to see change in your life. And I think having counseling as a space to come back to and check in about those changes can feel really supportive in a world that sometimes we feel very disconnected from others. So, first session with me will look like more structure than subsequent sessions. I know in this session that we will cover consent, your rights in counseling, and just how different technical or communication pieces are going to happen. But I also want to make sure that I give a lot of space to knowing what brings you to counseling right now, and also what has been helpful or unhelpful in the past when you've accessed other resources. I definitely want to get into a little bit more of what your world is like during this session, but I really understand that that takes time. And like any connection, counseling is a new one. And when you're coming into this space, I really value that slowness that comes with creating a space that you feel there's trust and there's clear communication, and you can show up as yourself.